The Beef and Barnzy Show, brought to you by Bowlersmart.com, trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Roll to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
Good afternoon, at least on the East Coast, and welcome to the special edition of the Beef and Barnzy Show this Friday, as we keep going every Tuesday and Thursday this year. I am Barnzy, joined by the unimitable Stuart Williams. Glad to see you and be a part here. How are you?
I was hoping we were going to be talking about what my tactics are going to be on the TV show, but yesterday wasn't a particularly great day for me. I think I only shot 300 over, maybe no, probably a bit less than that. 250 over. Didn't really see the picture in the way the guys did. When the PBA guys strike, they strike a lot.
Yeah, the scores were really high, and I saw, oh, a nice house shot, whatever, and I'm like, I'm here to tell you it wasn't, but they were PBA easy for sure. At the same time, I saw at least 10 different people shoot the head pin, and I don't mean because they missed it right. I mean because they missed it left. And,
all right, I'm here.
Yeah. Well, you saw my best frame, so yeah. I missed it twice.
I just think that, yes, the lanes were pretty easy.
Yes, they're high scoring, no doubt, but there is a difference between league easy and PBA easy.
But I think that part of it is once the lane guy allows us to throw the urethanes, I think that it breaks the lanes down in a way that is just going to only end up with one scenario, and that's the score is going to be massive. I think that the way he's set the lanes up for all three tournaments and does change. I actually think the scores would have been a little lower if we'd have still been using the old urethanes here.
I agree with that,
especially in Wichita, actually, because you obviously were the expert between the two of us in Wichita, but Wichita, the guys were able to stand closer to the friction and throw more at the head pin, which they wouldn't have been able to do. At that point.
I think that is exactly my theory of why the scores are so much higher, because the patterns aren't really that much different than years past, but because the harder urethanes take all the carry down lines and move them in 2 to 3 boards, now instead of having urethane in your break point, now you just have it left of you, and it's just hold. And so and it's also my theory about, why the right-handers are actually, their scores are going up as the block goes on, and the left-handers are not. And so they don't have as much carry down, and it's taking a little longer to transition for them. The usual squad to squad. I mean, that's nothing, that's nothing new. They get a little flatter as we run them through the week for a million different reasons, but that is consistent. So Casey with a good question right off the top. Are the guys using more surface on the new urethanes because of the hardness? Yeah, they're skewing that way pretty quickly.
This guy is.
Yeah. They still don't really make them hook tons more down lane, but they do make them.
You can just throw them a bit harder when you've got the more service on.
Right.
So yeah, we're gonna do a ball giveaway. You can pick whatever you want. Do a super chat. You're in. If you buy anything on beefandbarnzy.com during the show, you're in. If you want to pick a DNA coil or the new idol, both of which I've thrown, we'll talk about those a little bit later in the show. You'll have to wait a couple of weeks, like our friend Ryan did just recently. He got his Attention Star. It shipped out last week. So that's kind of the way it's going. So if you have any super chats, get them in. We're going to have a ball drawing, and maybe we'll give away some Cool Whip merch also. We were just talking on the Fresh. The urethane on the Fresh was the go-to for basically everybody. I think 2 people through reactive the first block on the right side. I'm looking at one of them.
Didn't go great.
Nathan was the other one.
Didn't go great.
Yeah.
It looked okay in practice. Not as much as the game went on. They just made it way harder than it needed to be. I was actually going back to Casey's question. Mine just did not hook enough there, and I did not do a good enough job of really blistering one of them with enough surface, or just drilling a stronger one, which I finally did drill a stronger one and then shot 100 over for 2.
Yeah, I ended up the last block. I was looking for a miracle and a prayer, and I tried to start with reactive, and I got principally about the same results, should we say?
Yeah.
But I thought it would help me with the transition, having my angles already open, but I then didn't really know which balls to change to, and I just didn't really have a very good matchup yesterday. And like, you watch the people who did, like Arturo and Benjamin Martinez, I bowled the round with them, and it was watching Benjamin Martinez bowl was fucking incredible. I mean, shout out to him. 1630. Yeah, he bowled a 130 when the scores were high, and after 12 games, he was leading with a 130 when people were averaging 250, basically. So if that, one of the ball reps said to me, he goes, if this doesn't convince you never to give up, nothing will. He went 180, 130 in the middle of his first block. And
which is 310 on that 320. That's like giving up 140 pins, 150 pins at the time.
Yeah. Well, let's just say 7 games later, he was leading the tournament.
Yeah.
It's insane.
He shoots 430 over. Marshall Kent shoots 385 and not a single word about it. Like, that's a
And then did you see yesterday?
Spend. And then he went 398 over again.
Just wild. Marshall had the strangest tournament because he had a couple of blocks where he wasn't that great, and then he had a couple of blocks he shot 770 over. Like,
he was like 120 or 30 over in the morning, the one morning, and like, whoa.
What ball did I use most this week? The balls that I used most were the red one, the IQ 78U. I used DNA coil a decent amount. I used an attention star fairly unsuccessfully. And I used a shiny. God, I'm so bad with the ball names now. You can tell I'm getting old. Absolute Power. They were the balls that I used mostly. The lanes were quite asymmetrical actually, with the way the left and the right were. The left was way more blended and the right was way more cliffed. I don't know enough really about the left side to understand. Simonelli, and I understand that people think that Simonelli whines a lot, but at the start of the week, he did kind of say, this isn't going to end well for us. And then he looked like an asshole because Packy was leading the first block. But as it went on, it became fairly apparent that it wasn't. The lanes were sort of saying, this ain't for you people.
I had Simonelli on my left, and I had Matt Sanders on my pair. And he had one that threw urethane exclusively and one that really didn't throw it hardly at all. And neither one of them were having much fun. Sanders made them look like they were pretty cliffed, but urethane kept getting in front of it and then kind of behind it. Hit the pocket a lot, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody had a problem hitting the pocket, really. I think my most amazing stat from the week, in my mind anyway, was it took me till the 26th game. Is it the 26th? No, the 28th game to leave the 3-6-10 this week. They have to be really fucking easy for that to be the issue.
Wow. That's impressive.
So now some of that was because the pins there fly. Like fly. Me and Don were laughing, saying we had more messengers there than we've had in the last 3 years on tour combined.
Which is wild when you think of North Rock as kind of a go-to for that kind of thing. And they didn't fly like they did here. The carry's good there. Straight. We used a different oil this week, which carried down a lot. And there's a lot of pins that are sliding around, but I think there's a way about the oil that actually got down the lane, plus the harder balls pushing, and literally everyone threw urethane after block one, I think, almost.
I mean, even EJ, who very rarely uses urethane, he shot 300 on the fresh using his, and he was going as straight as I was. Let's get through a couple of these questions. It says, let's get it started. Any early surprises compared to this time last year after the first events? Players you think are under or overperforming? I am pleasantly surprised how Zach Wilkins is bowling. I'm glad for him. I think he's a super nice guy. He bowls with me every week, so I know how he bowls. He's up to, I think he's about 7th or 8th in points. And when I say I bowl him every week, I've literally been on he's been on my pair, or I've been on his pair 3 of the first 5 weeks. We've bowled, so 3 of the 4 PBA events. And anybody who's bowling with me is eating right now. My pair went 2,700 over this week. Yeah, I didn't miss add up. 2,700 over our pair went.
I have an interesting one. After 12 games, we walked in the next morning. Our pair wasn't in order as far as 1 through 4. Unfortunately, we started about 48th, 49th, 50th, and 51st, but we were all, and we got there way different ways. But it was Smallwood, Sanders, and Nathan Board. So all of us throw it fairly differently, and all within 20 some pins.
Yeah, I mean, we by the end of qualifying, our pair was 5th, 6th, 9th, and 15th, I think. And then last week,
every once in a while, it's nice, and you just kind of everybody gets into a little rhythm, and you all just kind of build on each other. And
this is 3 weeks
going the wrong way.
This is basically 3 weeks in a row for me now. Last week, all our pair made it. I mean, when you're bowling with a guy who's bowling as well as Wilkins every week, it kind of helps because built in, he's going to be way up there. But when we bowled in Illinois, I bowled with Rash. I think 3 of the 4 guys cashed. I didn't cash, but I was like 40th or something. We had but after the first block, we crushed them. So it's been strange. Rash said he was going to go in the office and ask to bowl with me every week.
Yeah, I mean, as far as surprises, O'Neill's leading, which it is and it's not, because we all know how great a player he is, but he's having a great year. Marshall Kent's resurgence, again, it's more of a resurgence of guys who have been great, who are really, really having a good year so far. And I think, there's some surprises for sure.
Matt Ogle is struggling a little bit.
Wilkins, Zach Kroll are both guys that have been PTQ guys that are doing much, much better than that. And if you go down here to the surprises, guys that are probably outside of the cut right now, that would be a surprise. Kevin McCune's has not had a good go. Thomas Keiko has been not great, and Darren Tang, Francois Lavoie are all guys that are outside of the number currently.
To be fair, part of the reason why it's been the way it's been is we basically bowled on 3 patterns that are almost exactly the same. Like we bowl on 37, 38, and 39 feet. they've all been pretty high scoring. Like,
yeah, and I think the
so,
urethane transition, when the front to back ends up being fairly similar, I think that there will
well,
be trends that follow. I don't think
yeah, I
that's
just like I
unfair.
said, what I mean is though is like
Mhm.
37, 38, and 39. Like, your angles are going to be the same. Like, I mean, maybe on the 39-foot one, you're a bit more open, but I mean, like, largely they've been like, there hasn't been a massive amount of variety in those three distances. So the guys who like to throw it firmer, who like to have angle through the front, Marshall is extremely good at that. Extremely good. Bill has always liked friction. He doesn't particularly like a lot of oil. Bill's always been one of the best players on the tour when the lanes are drier, like always. So it'll be interesting to see in the back half of the year, because I know that it changes up, and that's part of the reason why we had it this way to start with. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think the PBA league has ended up being, I've stood in the same spot for every single league match. So we'll see. But I think that that's played a part in why some guys have got off to a really good start, because if you were good at one thing, you've been able to do that 3 of the 5 tournaments we've bowled. So
Yeah,
anyway,
to some extent. I mean, I think that's almost, yeah, like I say, it's early, and because of the classic events being piled up together, and that balances out what the patterns are for the majors, which we're going to see the balance side of that, which is more longer patterns in the back half of the year, plus whatever the Masters is going to be.
I mean, they're kind of figuring that Masters is going to go long again. If Neil, if
I
he,
think so. Yeah, I
if
think
he
that
pivots,
seems to be. Yeah.
if he pivots and does what he did for the previous 10 years, and we do 39 feet, then every tournament we bowled is going to be the same. So it'll be interesting. I mean, distance
on
wise.
Dragon, we bowled 45 feet, and we bowled on, what was the other one?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, Chris,
Yourself,
everybody's stood in the same place on Dragon to start with, on the fresh.
Gotcha.
That's all. It doesn't matter. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Are your angles different with the 78 versus the pitch black? Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, for me, a little bit no, because most of the time I got myself in trouble with the pitch black. It was because I tried to hook it and I stank at it. So when I actually did really well and with the pitch black, I was kind of doing what I did this week. And going forward, that's what I'm going to focus in on, is keeping it really straight. And if that doesn't work, I'm just going to use reactive, because Chris is able to shape it a little bit and I'm not. And it's just like that the guys are so good on the PBA tour that it just becomes dumb to try and do something that you're not very good at to try and compete with them. You might as well try and do something different that you're better at to try and keep up. Otherwise, the gap's just going to be huge. So, yeah.
Yeah, the angles are definitely different for both the guys throwing from the purple to the pitch, and then from the pitch black to the from the purple to the black hammer. I'm sorry, and then the pitch black to the 78U. Everybody's 3 to 4 to 5 right of where they were before, and they're adding more surface to get them closer, but they don't hook as much in the back as they did before. So, Andy, do you think Naira Global Roto will have a new urethane release?
I don't.
There's no word of that yet, if that's the case. So,
yeah, I think
right
that
now it is what it is.
I don't think that Storm like particularly love making lots of urethane balls. So I don't really know that there's a need for it. I think that you make your best possible product in that, and it doesn't seem to hurt the Purple Hammer sales that they only have one option. Like, people just buy that one. Same with the pitch black. I'm sure Storm has sold a lot of pitch blacks. And right now we have 2 anyway, because both the pitch black and the IQ set are available. So
yeah, and for everything except PBA stuff, it's those are 2 very different balls.
how
much different will the Optimum Idol be compared to the Exponent?
A lot.
Yeah, Exponent's middle numbers, both RG and differential, and the Optimum is very low RG, very high diff, and a much stronger cover. So,
yeah, the Optimum Idol has a cover somewhat in the gem range. I think the micro tracks, I think it is. And the exponent is in the range of the IQ Tour. So kind of that's where you're looking. When I've thrown it, the Optimum Idol, Simo threw it, got a triple at one point and walked back saying, "She's back." So he seems quite happy with it. But I haven't had that much time to play with it. It wasn't really the deal for me this week. But we will see. I'm sure the Masters, it'll come into play. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate you. How does the DNA coil compare to the TNT infused? This is one of the hardest questions we get asked all the time because to me, asymmetrical balls and symmetrical balls just don't compare at all. Like they're just totally different shapes because the asymmetrical balls just flare so much more and there's so much more like, yeah, it's just such a different shape. For me, the coil is much stronger than the infused. It's much more rounded. I mean, I'm not even sure I'd change to the TNT infused off the coil because the coil's so much stronger.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris?
The coil seems to be stronger cover wise and because of the asymmetry, a little bit stronger also core wise, and so those aren't balls that would go off each other. I mean, the infused will be below it, I guess, as far as it, little less overall. A little cleaner to that spot, and even though it's pretty strong symmetrical ball, it's still below the coil from that standpoint. That's how I see it.
Thank you, Daniel. You for your order on beefandbarnzy.com. You've been entered into the drawing.
Mike F, how are the new racer shoes working out? I'm a fan. Them. Yeah, I think they're more comfortable than before, and they seem to, yeah, new soles. You don't have the outline. Some of the other things. Richard,
how'd it work out for you?
Mid cut.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like he's
top 10 for a lot of it, and he's got a skill set. He's an old school guy that can make reactive balls look like urethane when he wants, and then make them look like not urethane later on. But we had a short talk earlier too. He's healthy again for the first time in a while, so he's feeling pretty good about how things are moving. Guy to look out for. Caleb, when you need to shoot really high scores in the last advancers round, do you prefer to be paired with friends, someone you loathe, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably rather have a right-hander just to have another look at the pair in case you see something funny. Be nice if somebody throws a little more like you, but it's really not that.
I mean, if you're going to spend 4 hours with someone you loathe probably isn't that great. But yeah. I mean, it's not really going to change your life very much because a lot of the time when we do those those last rounds and you've only got 2 people, there isn't exactly a lot of time for interactions.
No,
because you shoot your 2 shots, he shoots his 2 shots back and forth. So
Rob says, upcoming tournament on wood lanes, Mike Albee pattern, rev rate 350, speed at release 16, 17. So a little bit rev dominant. Suggestions on types of balls to use. You're going to have some friction. You're a little rev dominant. I'm going to say medium and below is going to kind of where you're going to head at. So, I mean, I don't even know if you need up as much as a DNA coil on that end. You're going to end up at infused and Vibos and Zen Golds and the Exponent Pearl and Hustle lines. Maybe
I was about to say I personally like solid balls on wood lanes. So IQ Tour, the Exponent, Hustle Rip, maybe. I like those balls. I mean, I think a urethane probably wouldn't be too. Even with a lower rev rate, depending on how much you like bowling straight, I don't think a urethane would be terrible to start with. Good luck.
It could be. It's 39 feet, I believe, right?
I think Orby's 37, but I'm probably wrong. Kind of surprised Belmo or Simon didn't make the top 5. Yeah, I mean, I guess when we count the pins for, however many games we ended up bowling, what we bowl like 12 a day, 36 games. Yeah, you expect the best bowlers to get up there.
Belmo didn't really. Well, and to be fair, he flew home to Australia and back just inside of a week, which is that's a tough trip. Hey, wow! Talk about the good and the great.
Yeah, Simon made a run last night. He ended up having to stay in his urethane the whole time. Here's a good question. Do you prefer total pin carryover or the best of 7 format? For me personally, as a fan and as a bowler, I think that we have an onus to make it more entertaining, and the format we just bowled is boring as shit. Like, people just, it's very difficult for the fans to get into it, for them to care. If you compare that to Illinois, where we did the best of 7, which we haven't done for ages, like, players were watching matches, like, the fans were super into the matches. Like, there's a lot of tactical things. If you decide to camp out and watch one match, you can see the way a guy will, is he going to like kind of give the games up, or is he going to like really try and, is he going to play to his strengths, or is he going to try and make it more awkward for the other guy? There's so much more to talk about in the best of 7 formats. I can appreciate somebody like EJ doesn't like that because, he's the best bowler at the minute and he has an advantage over the field. I get that. But as a sport, we need to make it more entertaining, and that format just ain't it. It just isn't interesting. Like, I mean, it just isn't. Like,
as a purist, it would be nice, and it's always, hey, well, golf. Well, we're not golf, and so I do. I found myself even as a player, and that I tuned in Chicago to watch EJ and Simo bowl. Yeah. Like, these are 2 of the best players. And then, Billy had a great match. Tommy bowled Belmo. I mean, there were some knockout matches that were, it's
just by far more. Now,
as an entertainment standpoint, I think it's easy to pick from a pure standpoint.
It is different what we're doing at the World Series when we only do best of 5. Not a fan of best of 5.
Yeah, 7 seems to be where it really separates. 5's better than 3, but
100%.
7 is where it's ideal.
Yeah. What was with the pins sliding halfway across the decks? I think that we used a really thick oil and it got kind of everywhere this week, and we put on they used quite a lot of it, and then all of the urethane balls. And I think that, like Chris was saying, once the oil got into the pin deck, it got on the pins. And it 100% wasn't a Dave Small bowling center issue. That's not typical at the bowling center at all. I think it was a combination of using that oil, which I don't even know that Brunswick produce anymore, or that it's available to buy anymore, the Formula 45. And I just think it caused a lot of issues. I know Chris was talking about it, that they sanded the bottom of the pins for the last round, and it wasn't like how it was in qualifying and the next day.
They went above and beyond there. They re-cleaned the decks a couple of times. They washed pins. They did a bunch of stuff to try and from all appearances, that certainly it wasn't a maintenance issue, which is commonly what people like to point out. But it was interesting though. It was the same for everybody. I got to say, it didn't single anybody out. So a lot of them.
Hey, Matt, thanks for your order on beefandbarnzy.com. Appreciate you. Yeah. Does the cover on the harsh reality hold service well? My eternity pie seems to shine up fairly quickly. I think that it holds it. I think that cover is more aggressive than the Eternity Pie, and the Eternity Pie cover does. I noticed that it does tend to shine up pretty quickly. I don't think that's the case. I think the Harsh Reality has a cover similar to the Reality.
Yeah, I think it's closer to that same family.
I didn't really have that issue with the Reality. I haven't really got to play with the Harsh Reality very much. I did the one for the video, and I haven't drilled one since I came out on tour because the patterns that we bowled on haven't really dictated that it made any sense to drill one. I don't really think that I'll drill one next week either. Bowling in Delaware with as much as the lanes hooked there. Maybe the Masters. Probably the next time I'm going to drill one will be the probably the Masters. But
yeah, because there is a lot of oil in the lane, but you haven't seen a lot of the really bigger balls on tour this year. And so there's been a lot, but there's been more from 15 to 35 feet than there has been in the first in front of it, I guess. It's not that there's not a lot, there's just more behind it.
There isn't really much more oil than there was last year, and they've been spending a lot of time using less of the really slick oil.
Oh, there's that.
So to me, it's like, yeah.
It's the most challenging environment in the world, the oil lanes.
Oh, 100%.
You have the most rev rate. You have the flattest patterns, which the more, even though the scores are really high, I mean, in general, they're still under 3-1 when we're starting. And the flatter they get, the more small changes make big differences in paces. And an extra board on one side of the lane, can change the scoring pace by 15 pins. And go from, wow, we're shut out to, wow, we have an advantage. And so it's really, that's a good question.
For me, I put it in to fill the gap that I used for the reality check last year. The reality check became commonly known in my in my circle of ball reps as the gag ball. When I wasn't bowling very well and I couldn't pry it off, the reality check was the ball. The pin down reality check was the ball I went to because it didn't check as hard in the front, so it allowed me to be a little softer with my hand and not climb all over it. And this was what I drilled the coil for, to be a more rounded option. I think the coil is a little earlier. I think that the check is probably a little quicker down the lane, but they're in the same ballpark for sure.
Yeah. Let's see.
Hey Dan, thanks again for your order. What dates are you bowling nationals? I'm bowling May 9th and 10th, I think it was. Are you bowling towards the end, Chris?
I'm June 2nd, 3rd, right before, actually the morning of practice session for the Senior Masters.
Here's a fun question. If either of you were given you a chance by SPI to design your own ball, what cover core combination would you choose? This is always the poison chalice, being able to pick, because you don't like. To me, the DNA coil didn't really like the DNA. It's got a cover that I think is somewhat in the realms of the exotic gem from kind of like seeing it. I don't really like the exotic gem, like the DNA coil.
Yeah.
So like
phase 1 to phase 2, it's sometimes it's hard to know what the next one will be like, but our guys are pretty good. So, but yeah, I guess for me, traditionally, low RG symmetrical balls have been a favorite, but that being said, we have a lot of those right now, so that wouldn't be what I would pick to fill the gaps. It would be somewhere, something more middle-ish, I guess, at least RG wise, and try and take a swing at that. Maybe somewhat like Journey numbers, but not quite as early a cover. Sorry, yeah, I knew it was there. I couldn't find it.
I was about to say because it's me and Chris, what we'd probably do is we'd probably research history and see which were the best selling balls in Storm's range and try and build something that was close to that.
Just remake it. Yeah. Do something that's actually been super successful.
Yeah, I'd probably do a virtual gravity.
And I would do something symmetrical that worked. Yeah.
Virtual gravity remake with a Beef and Barnzy logo on the wrong side, on the other side of it. Yeah, let's go. Even make it the same color. Hey David, what's going on? My arsenal is the Dynamics, the Phase 2, the Sublime, the Vivo, the Ruby, and the Hustle Rip. I feel like I'm missing something at the top and been talked into Black Widow 3.0. What would you suggest adding from SPI? Right off the bat, I actually quite like the Black Widow 3.0. I think it's rolled pretty well. So I don't think that you're being guided in a bad direction there. For us, the Gem is probably the one that is most proven so far. Harsh Reality seems like it's going to be a pretty nice addition, but I don't think either Chris or I have thrown it enough to know exactly what it's going to do.
Just haven't got to throw it on tour this year. So haven't even got to throw the Gem or Realities, to be honest. It's been very slim on balls and I like those type of balls. I'd like to be able to throw them a little more often, but Gem, Harsh Reality is in that range as well, for sure. If you want to go a step below that and still have the Eternity Pie is still probably plenty of ball to separate from what you have there.
Yeah.
Which is in the range of the Black Widow 3.0, it seems, without having thrown it. But the Dynamics kind of fits the gap in between Vivo and the Hustles. So it's obviously much smoother, but that's kind of that.
Yeah, like I say, for me, I would want a ball that was big. So I mean, if you were, I really like the way the Absolute Power's rolling, but it's not for me. It's Absolute Power or Eternity Pie. I think they're in the same, for me anyway. They're in somewhat the same group, and then the step above that is Gem or Harsh Reality. Yes, Brian, best of 7 in Delaware. Yep. That should be an interesting one. Did you end up 12th? I did. Andrew Smith says, how do I donate to the gas fund? And then he did. So appreciate you. Give you a little heart.
Oh, that's so cute how you do that.
Yeah. Shout out to Andy and Daniel for their orders on beefandbarnzy.com. Thank you very much. Stuart, a friend of the show who won a couple of weeks ago, says, how do you refocus after hitting a plateau? I went from averaging 205 to averaging 159. I'm guessing he doesn't mean his average literally dropped because he'd have been averaging 120. My physical game feels the same, but I don't understand my game changed drastically while I'm not changing anything. This is 100% where you take and then once you start to have troubles, you take video again, and then you can compare the two and see if you're doing something different. Because the thing with the human body, I'm going to get all philosophical here, but is you can feel like you're doing the same thing, but your brain fucks with you. And then you look at it and you're like, I'm nowhere near what I was doing before. But your brain's telling you, we're just doing the same thing. And if it's a gradual change over, say, a 3-month period, you could end up being like a whole step out of time. But because it's only happened in like really incremental changes, then it really messes with you. So that's why I believe, I know that Chris has a video of when he felt his best that he looks at. And like, I think that's what is the biggest thing, is having that like resource of this is what I was like when I was good.
Yeah,
What
I
am I
think
doing differently now?
Yeah, don't skip on the video when it feels good. Document that. You don't have to work at it. You don't even have to look at it right then. But put it away and earmark it, favorite it, wherever you want to put it, somewhere where you can go, all right, this is a bar that if I get out of whack, I can at least come back and go, felt pretty good here, and compare up against it. And that's really what you're doing. If you use Mark Baker and you do a video lesson, that's ideally what you want to do too, is you want to take a shot and go, hey, that one felt good, mark it, tell him that's the one that feels good, then throw the one that is popping up, keep taping till you go, oh, that's the one I'm trying to get rid of. And then send those 2 shots in, and your video lesson will be much more productive.
Thanks, Richie.
This is the guy who knows a lot about it. He's another bowling alley rat.
Dick falls into a category with Ryan Schaefer, to me, anyway. And that's not a rude way. I'm just saying that, like, Schaefer bowled on tour for a long time, and he was very successful for a long time. And if you asked anybody in the field who didn't bowl every week, what about Ryan Schaefer's game would you want? Literally nobody would take anything from him. And like when you want
to play the lanes right a lot.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
His Dick and Schaefer's superpower, so to speak, is that they don't fuck around wasting frames in the wrong part of the lane.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting. You learn way more from talking to a guy who's been able to bowl forever on tour. You'll gain way more knowledge from them than you will from EJ, because EJ can't relate to me. Like, I can't do any of the things EJ does. EJ doesn't have any of the struggles I have. It's like a millionaire telling a guy on the streets what they should do. You've never lived in a cardboard box. How would you know? Yeah. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, we'll joke with Dick about, something that happened. Oh God, can you believe that we just can't get that ball to do this? And EJ's like, what are you on about? So to me, anyway, they're the interesting people to chat to about what you're seeing and the ups and downs of it. Like, I think someone said the other day, the last 4 years, EJ is averaging like $9,000 an event or something insane. Like, it's just what?
We have that many wins.
Yeah. Jam, Infinite Physics, Zen Soul, Revenant, looking to round off the bag with a ball between the Soul and the Revenant. Thought the best of 7 matches were awesome. Okay, Justin. For
Soul
me,
Infinite.
Soul and Infinite. Sorry. I corrected you because you're really looking for a ball between.
You identified where you thought the gap was.
Yeah. No, I see now. I didn't actually see that you had Zen Soul, Zen Revenant. My bad. Okay. So you want something between the Infinite Physics. That isn't a huge gap, to be perfectly honest. For me, anyway. What about you, Chris?
On the smoother side. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's a difficult gap to fill, to be perfectly honest. I mean, the only ball that I could think that you could put in there would be like a virtual energy blackout. Whereas you get well, I feel like the blackout has the same cover as the Infinite Physics, but it's shiny. So you would get like a fairly dynamic reaction. It would just be longer than both the Zen Soul and the Infinite Physics. But I think that the blackout would hook more overall than the Zen Soul.
Yeah.
I'm kind
of really the fit between the Zen and the Revenant, but it's the same thing. It's longer and more angular.
Yeah.
More overall. Longer than the Zen and more overall than the Revenant. But I agree. I don't think there's a big gap right there necessarily. But if I was to fit something in there, it'd probably be something one of the newer, stronger. DNA Coil looked pretty good last week. Now the scores were high, and that's probably part of it. But It did look like it fit a pretty nice gap. That's right. Reality strike. If you know, you know.
Shout out to Chad for another order on beefandbarnzy.com. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Great week, Stu. As a lefty, I tend to leave more 7 pins than 10 pins. I know, boohoo. It's probably because your ball is too far down the lane. So if you're hitting like half pocket and you're leaving the 10 pin, it's because you're coming behind the head pin too much. And if it's really like weak, it's probably because it's just too long and it doesn't get chance to make it. Add in a little surface to your ball. So maybe going from a shiny ball to a 2000 ball, or, you know, if you've got surface, adding a little more surface is probably the way to combat that, I would think.
Yeah, I agree. The ball's just getting too long. Because you would leave flat 10s if it was too early in general. And that's the head pin comes in front of the 10 when you're in behind it. So the 7s are a little late breaking and a little smooth, generally speaking. So appreciate the question. Hi, Ryan.
Mostly for you, Chris. How often do you still use Rico? There are some balls I'm considering using it on.
It's been fairly useless without the extra hole. I've tried because I did like that layout a lot. I used some asymmetrical balls to try and make up the difference because I always use it on kind of medium symmetrical balls, but it just hasn't been that good, and it hasn't stood out any of the times when I've tried it. I had more luck with asymmetrical than not when I did try it, but meh in general.
Yeah. For me, I can't use it. I'd track over the holes.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing a big difference in the shape performance between the IQ Urethane and the Black Hammer? Does the hardness keep them close? I think that from what I've seen anyway, that when you're going a lot straighter, I think that the IQ seems to have a little bit of an advantage. I think that if you want to curve it, I think that the black one does. Now, I don't 100% know if that's player determinant because a lot of the guys who used the purple hammer were used to curving it a lot.
Right.
And the pitch black guys were going a little straighter anyway. So I don't know whether that's a skill set thing, but just in general, for me, when you've been able to freeze it more straight at the head pin and play more traditional urethane reaction, I think that the 78 has actually been a little better. I think that more when you open your angle up a little bit, I think that the black hammer has been a little better. I think that them all being sort of like standardized to 78 has made the difference a lot smaller between the haves and have-nots. That's kind of how I've seen it anyway. I did have one other question for you, Chris, about the left and how much harder it is, I think, for the lane guy to oil the lanes on the left side now than it ever used to be. There's 15 lefties on tour. 12 of them want to play the lanes one exact way. Whereas it wasn't really the case before. The guys were playing them fairly differently. So if they put an advantage on the left side, it might be only like 3 or 4 of them would take advantage of it.
Right.
Now it's like, if there is any advantage on the left side to do what they want to do, all 12 of them will crush it because they're very, very good at doing that.
Yeah, most of it ended up with a little bit higher rev rate, able to go right to left at it. Yes, was probably the straightest of them, ironically, with also the highest rev rate. And except with the exception of Parker and Simonelli and a couple of guys that really want to throw reactive, there's way more Jacob type than want to arc it at it with a lot of rev rate or throw it slow like Rousseau and that. And it's an incredible challenge because before I was out there, you had the guys that really hooked it. You had Dwayne Fishers and John Mazas and Stay Rooks and guys that really arced it from in. Steve Cook, Mike Albee, and then you had Parker, who was kind of in the middle, and you had Couch who could play in, and you had Ricky Ward that was in the middle, and you had Scroggins that played way out, and like you said, there was groups, but you didn't have, it was easier to make them to have a group that bowled well, but not all. And now there's so many guys. Now we've kind of weeded out all the guys that really kind of don't throw urethane right to left at it, and so it's very difficult to differentiate between an all and a none. And sometimes
exactly just what I'm saying, like,
yeah,
I just think I was noticing it this week. And this isn't a knock on the lefties. I just think that the environment that they've played in, it's a bit like when we used to bowl the World Championships against the Korean team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they would infect the lanes with urethane, and you were kind of fucked. It was the best trick they ever played, because when it got down to the Masters, they wanted to use the urethane on everything, and the other guys who made it really didn't. But once they managed to bowl on all of the lanes, you were screwed, because all of them were doing that. And if you weren't competitive. And I think that the left-hand side's gone a little bit that way. And it's a bit chicken and the egg, because it's like, should more of them be reactive? Yes. But if that never works, why would you do it?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's why I think it's really hard for the left side. With oil in it, why you get like weeks where like they all bowl great or none of them bowl great, and then they're like, well, we never get. It's impossible, because there isn't on the right. There's a bunch of guys who can bowl straight, and there is a shit ton of guys who can hook the crap out of it.
Yeah.
So if all you have to do, if you can only bowl straight, we've still got 10 guys who are really good at just bowling straight.
Yeah.
But the left side don't necessarily do anything different. And because they all want to try, they've all had success using the urethane. That's what they want to do. But then it kind of fucks it up for the guys who don't want to do that. So then the lane guy's screwed, because he either gives them the solution they want and they all bowl well, or he doesn't, and then they're all screwed. There isn't really a middle ground anymore.
Yeah, so. I mean, certainly the tougher part is you've had Jesper that led a block the week before in Chicago, and then Packard led a block this week, and then they got tighter. It appeared down lane. In Chicago, they definitely got tighter down lane as the week went on. I can't really speak to this week. I was with Jesper, so I got to watch it, and
yeah,
I mean, it's hard to say what the answer is. Jesper has a much harder time throwing reactive, so stepping out of that urethane is tricky because his rev rate is so high. It's so much different for him. But
yeah,
for you, Kellen, thanks for the question. Super chat. For you, what situations call for a ball with a relative core cover mismatch, i.e. strong core, weak cover, absolute power versus opposite?
For me, I like strong core, weak cover. I don't really like weak core, strong cover, just in general.
Yeah. Duo, that's more of a wet, dry league type of thing where you have an imbalance in pattern. And for the other, it's really become more of where the weaker cover, because of all the surfaces getting older, all the oils getting a little thicker and a little slower in the front, having covers that don't glue up in the front is important. And then there's still plenty of oil down lane. Those oils are built to not travel so much, to not break down so much after that. And so, you need the core. You need the stuff that can dig through that later on. That's where balls like absolute power do come into play for sure.
ADHD whiskey. ADHD. Love watching the tour this year and catching up on the past shows. Thanks for all the great content and great advice. You're welcome. Thanks for the super chat. You're, of course, in the drawing. I just wanted to highlight that. We really appreciate. Adam says, long time no see. B from Barnzy. Hope I win the ball. Well, we'll see you this week, Adam. Adam's going to come out to the event in Delaware. So it'd be good to see you. Glenn, morning. Glenn, how are we doing? In a 6-ball Arsenal, can a phase 2 and the new idol be in the same bag? Not really. But again, as always, it depends. If the phase 2 is a ball that you use almost all the time, then yeah, of course. Because when you're building an arsenal, it's to try and complement your skill set. And if you're using the phase 2 60% of the times that you bowl, having a ball that's close to it would probably be a useful thing in your bag. But those 2 balls are going to occupy somewhat of a similar spot in the bag. Would you say that's fair, Chris?
Yeah, I think so. You separate them out with some drilling and a little bit with surface, and you can certainly have, you can move a ball up with drilling and surface 1 or 2 spots in that little 6-ball arsenal I put together. Lots of times in years past, when you had one brand to pick from, often you might only have 2 or 3 balls that you really like. And so you have to find a way to make those balls fit 100% of things you're going to bowl on. And so,
Joe, I have a 13-year-old bowler that struggles with turning on the ball early and the downswing, causing a spinner down the lane. Drills are helping, but do either of you guys have any advice on helping? Chris has a really good one for this, to turn as late as possible.
Yeah, I mean, 2 things. One, you want to really focus on staying a little taller in the middle once you get forward, but that right shoulder has to stay back behind your ear. If it rolls forward, your hand's going to be on top of the ball, and you're only going to be able to spin it. If you're trying to hit it from there, Shota is probably one of the most successful guys at doing this, but he is way forward and his hand's up on top of it. And he makes his ball hook a lot, but his track is very low. It's very unique.
And he's very strong.
Yes, he's a brick.
Shota built like bull.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. But yeah, keeping that right shoulder back and keeping it, basically staying up. Keeping your chest at your target and not letting this roll forward. Because once this rolls forward, you're only going to throw it left and you're only going to spin it.
Hey, Caleb. Headed to Junior Gold for the first time, bringing an exotic gem, phase 2, ruby, purple hammer, and spare. Would you change anything? Personally, without seeing you bowl, it's a little difficult. I think the exotic gem might be a little bit of a strange choice for Junior Gold, based on what I've seen in the past. With that being the strongest ball you've got, I think that's the one you're going to want to use a little bit on the fresh, combined with the phase 2 and the purple hammer. I don't think it necessarily makes that much sense for it to be an exotic gem, because I think it's going to be a little difficult to control at the start.
It's a little bit nichey. Yeah. I mean, purple hammer's probably going to get to start a lot, judging by how those things go.
100%.
So I get having something a little more responsive than that, but I think there's some that are probably got a little bigger range to go with that.
Yeah. Like,
I guess I would say even in that same vein, what we've seen already from the coil looks like a ball that would be a little more universal, although it is very early for us to go down that route.
100%. But I mean, of the balls we have right now, I think an Eternity Pie would fit better in that gap. If you wanted a quick ball because you're thinking you're going to use the phase 2 or the purple hammer on the fresh, I think that a virtual energy blackout might be better, because it's going to be a little bit closer to the ruby. I think you're just going to have a gigantic gap between the exotic gem and the next quick ball you've got, which is the ruby. So
you can drill that V-bow down if that's if you can do that without clipping holes or anything, and give you some response without being uncontrollable or needing a lot of free friction.
Chris, Tony Vaughn, our friend up in Ohio, says, Jerry used to tell me if there was ever a player to copy his form, it was you. That's a pretty nice compliment.
It is nice. It is nice. Never said it to me, But yeah. Yeah, Jerry was she was one of the great coaches through that Team USA lineage. And so she was very helpful to a lot of players. The closer we get to the pins, the more we want the same thing. The further we get away is where we want to understand and use our uniqueness.
Too philosophical for me in the morning, Rick.
Or the afternoon.
Yeah. I like to develop players from the objective of the sport, the pins, and work backwards. Yeah, I mean that definitely makes sense. I threw one shot today, a couple of days ago, and Zach Wilkins goes, "I thought that was a really good shot," and I said, "Well, I appreciate that, but the pins didn't give a fuck. They disagreed with you." Because I left like something weird. I can't remember what I left, but he goes, "I thought that was a good shot." I said, "Me too, but the only people who matter are the pins," and they told me to go away. I've always wondered if you look at the score and think, how did I only bowl that? Yes, it's like you're in my brain. I shot 238 bowling the greatest game I ever bowled last night, the first game. I was like, why isn't it taken into consideration that I'm using a reactive ball and it's way harder than chucking the urethane at the head pin? Why is it so mean? And how do you move on from a horrible game? It depends. If you're bowling league and you're staying on the same pair, then you have to think about the previous shots and make a choice on what you should change. If you're bowling a tournament and you're moving on to the next pair, you can kind of shrug it off and just, restart your process, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sometimes easier and it's sometimes harder to move on if you stay on the same pair, because at least if you stay on the same pair, you know what the issue was.
Well, yeah.
Calvin, good morning, gents. SBI has put out a lot of balls so far this year. What release have been your top choices so far? Go ahead, Chris.
Does Vivo count as this year? I don't even know what you're talking about.
No.
I guess that was last year ball.
Yeah. We've had Harsh Reality, Exponent Pearl. We've had Absolute Power, sort of. We have had we've
Absolute
now got
Power's fit a gap. The Exponent Pearl has fit a gap that was kind of being underserved at the moment. There's been a lot of low RG symmetricals that really haven't got a chance to throw the idol enough yet. The coil was impressive in its first week. The Attention Star was surprisingly a little smoother than I expected out of that shiny combination, but it's been pretty usable on tour. The guys have really liked it, and so for me, it was not. It's not a regular in my bag, but it certainly has been for a few other guys. So I do like Absolute Power. Exponent Pearl has been in and out a little bit. I think we'll get to use it probably more at the World Series and some of those things.
I actually have a feeling that the Exponent Pearl for me bizarrely has looked better on the long patterns, because it's so responsive.
You need something quick in a short distance.
Yeah. So I actually think that this week in Delaware we're going to use a lot of that ball because there's so much friction there, and we're bowling on 45 feet. That I think that I used it on the long pattern at the US Open, and I used it bizarrely on fresh in Springfield. I was playing way to the right with it, and it looked pretty good there also. For me, once I get in the transition with that ball, it reads the friction so hard, it makes it a little difficult to control for me. I could see that ball being really good for some of the lower rev rate players, though, who want to see hook. I really like the Absolute Power, but that's not really a shock. I like a lot of balls with R2S type covers. The Power for me, fantastic shiny. I love the Absolute. Not that many other people did. It gives me a very rounded motion. I think the core, having the asymmetrical core, helps me out when we've got oil down lane. I feel like I can do a lot with that ball. So Attention Star so far for me, It's very good to control the pocket. I haven't really struck that much with it, but it was really good for me at the US Open. So yeah. I think that the harsh reality is going to be really useful. It just hasn't been in play.
Yeah.
Brian Meeks, thanks for the super chat. You said, gentlemen, love the show. Been using the Omega Crux as my benchmark for a few seasons. Need to upgrade soon. Are there any good equivalents? For me, Eternity Pi.
That's the one that came to mind. It looks and rolls very similar. Yeah, I think that's probably your closest. We did have a follow-up here. Scott bumping my previous super chat, which has more impact on reaction cover formula or surface prep. And in this result, where you saying, can I get my Zen Soul to a reaction the same as regular Zen? And that's where I would say cover formula does matter, because I don't think you could make a Zen Soul look like a Zen, in my experience of messing around with it, per se. For surface prep does make a huge difference, and you can move it up and down, but to some extent, it is very difficult to make a pearl, a stronger pearl or a weaker solid look like the other one, or the other formulation necessarily. That makes sense.
Sorry if we missed your question, Scott. It wasn't intentional.
No, I think it was more of a follow-up. That was the one with the Zen Soul and
okay.
question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just checking we hadn't missed out on something we were supposed to.
Let's see. The next one is Marion. Is there any advantage to dumbing down strong balls for medium length house shots? I'm trying to rebuild an arsenal with so many. Gem, Reality, Rubicon. Yeah. Actually,
I use weaker layouts a lot.
We do that on strong balls a lot on the fresh, so that the balls don't get so far offline when there's no ratio to take advantage of. So you can play a little closer to it. You can control the front to back on the lane. And at the same time, you're also taking oil off the lane in a place that will help it as you throw more shots. Max flare and max hook, sometimes out of that isn't particularly helpful, and just makes it too early and then too lazy down lane.
I think as time goes on and the covers get stronger, I always feel like the strongest layout becomes weaker every year. So for me, it was never really 3 3/8 was the strongest, like the most overall hook, because it would always burn up. For a while, I felt like it moved to about, and it's all relative to the player, of course, but I felt like it moved to about a 4-inch pin was like where it's the strongest. And right now, I feel like almost a 4.5-inch pin is getting to the point where that's the strongest that anybody should do without it like flaring out and really just burning up all the time. I almost never drill a ball that isn't urethane or like a really small core ball with a 4 as the first number. It's nearly always a 5 or a 6-inch pin for me, but that's with my skill set. I'm just giving people a perspective. Shout out to Jake Peters using the old 2-inch pin this week.
There you go.
Yeah. I knew you'd have been proud.
Yeah. Seemed like although the score's a little high for that kind of drilling, because you're looking to maximize the room versus control it. But lefty start off good this week. What happened? I can't say as much this week. I know in Chicago they got tighter down lane, and so at least for Jesper, he just had a harder time. Really needed to be able to slow down a little bit more than he was comfortable with. I felt like that doesn't mean it would have worked. He just kept hitting it harder and harder, and he had some success, but not as much as he did obviously early.
Yeah, I mean, this 100% for me anyway falls into the category of don't know, don't care.
I mean, every block they're a little different. It's always been that way. Sometimes you start out 2 or 3 right. We always start in a different section of the building, so there's no even saying that there is any different. You're just in a different part of the house, and so it happens all the time. people talking about, oh, they should, should be this or should be that. I think shoulds are a waste of time. They just are. So
Yeah, I
adapt,
think it's
especially
a
on the
little.
preview tour level. But
I think it is a little disappointing when people just don't necessarily pay attention to, like, it's obviously different. Like, professional bowlers don't like just randomly do something different the next time.
no, they didn't go, hey, I averaged 240 last block. I thought I would just completely change strategies because that wasn't good enough.
Hey, Dan, what's going on? Just want to say big thank you for the ball advice a couple of weeks ago. Got a Vibo ordered. Hopefully I can drill it this weekend. Well, let us know how it goes. It's one that Chris very much likes. I'm like, it's a good ball. It's not a banger for me, so to speak.
It is a banger for me. I will.
Why are we seeing more righties complain about lefties lately? And I'm a righty. I just feel like it's pointless to complain. I think it's as old as time. Bowling.
I think once either side starts, there's more right-handers. So,
Yeah.
And so they're gonna, whether it's a start or a clap back, you're gonna hear the right-handers more, generally speaking.
Mika says it's 11 years today for that nice design he did with my daughters.
Oh, that's so cute. I like that.
Memories. Travis, regular contributor to the show. Hey guys, had my second 700 series this weekend in the county tournament. Took second all over. That's awesome. Great job. See if it'll do a thumbs up for you. There you go. Good job, Travis. I mean, yeah. It's okay. We've got plenty of people watching. I'm more happy about people watching than likes. But if you want to hit the like button, do it. Just wanted to say thanks for all you do. Well, thank you, Mike. I think we're coming. Oh, no, we got Hubert Bowles. Just wanted to say hi to both of you. Good luck on your next tournament. Thank you. For Chris, that's going to be the Masters, correct?
Yes, it will be the Masters. Is that the one you mean, Mika?
Oh God, you're a treat, aren't you?
Well, I'm an acquired taste, that's for sure. So this is the one he really means. But
oh, sorry, Mika. At least he appreciates it. I believe the phrase is what you should say at the bracket table. All. How many 50 events do you plan to bowl? Miko Kovu, yay me.
Yeah. This is his daughter's designed the front. Martin Larson helped out on the back with the Swedish crowns. So obviously Mika being Finnish. He used to have this big crest on the one side, this big lion crest, kind of from a family deal. And so we turned that into a Care Bear and some unicorns and butterflies and rainbows and whatever else. So yeah, he looked good in it. I'm going to bowl everything but the first one because the first one overlaps with the tournament champions. So
Mark says, I have noticed in league that when I bowl on the lanes in front of the counter, my scores go down. Do you think this is normal due to lane use? Yes. It's one of the secrets of America that the counter staff are quite lazy and they always put the first people on right in front of them because then they can keep track of them easier. I'll
be right back.
It's just the way it's always been. Yeah. So there tends to be a little more friction because the lanes are just used a little more. For me, I tend to use a little bit of a weaker ball at that point. Yeah. It can be awkward, though, for sure. Troy says, when's that jersey making another appearance? I think Mika might have burnt it, Troy. None is the best thing said at the bracket table. No, come on. It's always all. Hey, Dan, what's going on? Well, thank you very much, guys, for all of the super chats today. we will get, once Chris gets back, we will get to doing the drawing. To all the guys who made orders during the show, thank you very much. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people who made orders during the show, so they will be added. Right now, we're at 41 super chats. So if you want to get in the drawing, we're going to cut it off in like 5 minutes. So if you have a super chat or you want to buy something on beefandbarnzy.com to get in, let me know. And yeah, Chris is back. So any tips for a collegiate bowler looking to go pro?
Yeah, I mean, bowl regionals. For starters, it's a great environment, and you get a lot of guys who look like they're going to go on tour at some point. But develop speed control, because the one thing about college is they all seem to hook a lot, and the thing about tour is you end up having to create more of that down lane shape. So Troy, that's my kid that wanted to know when that was going to make another appearance. Oh, I'm sure we can make one for him. Troy wants to wear it again. We can throw that one out.
One-handed. Yes. 16 miles an hour on the screen, 450. Gem, Eternity, Zen Master, Zen, Hustle Camo, Pitch Black. Thinking of replacing the Zen Master as it feels niche. Would a phase 2 be better? Probably. Although Zen to Hustle Camo is an extremely large Grand Canyon sized hole in your arsenal.
Yeah, so Vibo would fit in nicely there, among other things.
Yeah.
You have a different fit in there. I know Vibo's not your things. And
I mean, a lot of these balls aren't my thing, though.
Yeah.
So
Zen Gold Vibo fits in between there easily.
Yeah.
Exponent fits in there.
TNT infused.
Yeah. But yeah, the Zen Master probably I would.
Hey, Pekka, if I have to send this ball to Finland, you might be in trouble. I mean, I like you. I might be Venmoing you $50 instead. Just saying. Hey, Adam, I saw you trying to get another. He said just an extra super chat because he misses us. Here's a good question. Right. This actually came up this week. Nobody at head office heard me, but it says on the website that the reactor gloss is 500, 1,000, 4,000. I think that that's actually out of date from the information we got, and they're actually doing 5,000, 1,000, then the
500, 500, 1,000,
500, 1,000, then like polish. Whereas the website says it's 500, 1,000, 4,000, then polish. And I think that it just needed an update because it actually came up while we were bowling this week. And poor Eric was redoing my attention star. And then he came back out and Callahan had just got off talking to head office. And he was like, oh, shit, didn't need to do that. You made no difference. Because exactly what he did to my ball is what they told us to do. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody earlier asked if my eye was okay. Yeah, I had a lens replacement in one eye, and I had an adjustment this morning. So this is what your eye looks like when it's dilated.
Yeah. Yeah. Scary. I mean, you were fairly scary without the eye.
Yeah, it's not great no matter what, but now it's just, yeah.
Hey, Douglas, thank you. Let's see if I'm lucky.
You ever tried to figure out how many balls you've drilled and who has drilled the most?
And the answer is Simo.
Don makes
also,
a nice run at it every
I was
day.
about to say, Simon also bowls by far the most games along with EJ. So
yeah, and EJ throws the least amount of balls. So I don't know.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
He drills the least variety. It's this
Well,
purple one or that purple one.
That's just true. He says just between the two of us.
Oh, then it's not even close. I run Chris the fuck over.
I had a head start, though. I am older.
Yeah, I probably caught you quite a while ago. See, because I genuinely believe you can drill talent. Chris doesn't.
I keep trying now. For what it's worth.
If it includes redrills and tweaks. Hey, Cliff, I sent you a message. I need an answer to
that. He's not wrong.
Yes, it seems to be, but the original idol was a goat, so it's a little difficult to, get super excited about the idol after 3 games. All right. So we've got 48 super chats.
I don't think I am. So,
and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 orders on beefandbarnzy.com. So 53. And I am absolutely begging that this isn't going to Finland.
I mean, pull up the generator so you can see it.
Yeah, we'll do. Well, I might not. I'll just say.
Sorry.
Oh dear.
Becca, you would think so? That's what I was hoping for? No, sir.
It's much stronger, isn't it?
Yeah, much smoother, much stronger in the mid lane. So
let's just answer Jeremy's question before we two-handed, Pi, Infinite, Phase 2, Zen, IQ Solid, Ruby, High Road Pearl, Hype Solid, 78U, Pitch Black. What should I add?
Infinite.
I think you should probably add something stronger than the Pi, but it depends how much speed you have.
Yeah.
Like half these balls for Ryan would be totally useless with as hard as he throws it. But if you're a rev dominant two-hander, then it would make more sense. So
you almost have to guess with that arsenal that it's way more about controlling how much friction there is. So
he said rev dominant here.
Yeah. Pi, Infinite. I mean, those are some pretty solid balls, especially on the house shot. I mean, Infinite Physics was like one of my all-time favorite house balls.
Yeah.
On the house shot. It has not been great on tour. And literally I just don't hardly ever see them now. But on the house stuff, man.
Probably should have drilled one this week.
Yeah. Actually, no kidding. Yeah.
Oh dear.
So would have made
I mean, for me, there's a bunch of balls. I think there's probably a little bit of a gap between like Phase 2 and the IQ Solid. You could maybe add an exponent, one of the exponents in there. But overall, I think you've got a pretty good blend, especially if you're rev dominant. So
yeah, and you have higher flaring, lower RGs, lower flare. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty good arsenal, really. There's not a lot of holes in there.
All right, let me just see. How many did we get to? We had 55. Right, here we go. $56. You can answer that one.
Do you have any layout changes? And 57. Have layout changes with new RG's diffs. I mean, the new RG diffs are pretty much the old RG diffs. So that's all kind of stayed. The cap's been at 060 for a while.
I think they might be wondering. Okay, yeah, okay. I was thinking about because some of the balls have changed, with the AI core, where they've remade balls like the idle is now a couple of points lower RG, a little bit more flare. The the reality changed a little bit also?
In general, no, not really. Slightly. I mean, you could technically maybe slightly weaker, further away from your PAP, but a little sharper angles. If you're a dual angle guy, you want to get drill it to be a little more angular to balance out to try and get as close as possible. But in general, no. So,
Oh,
what do we
sorry.
got?
Added hustle rip for dry lanes, Sublime, Attention Star, Magic Gem, Journey, High Road Pearl, Virtual Gravity, Absolute Power. Not many other options for fresh. No, I think you've got a pretty good combination there.
Magic Gem and Journey are both fairly strong.
Absolute Power. Like I think you've got some pretty nice options for the fresh there. You might consider a symmetrical low RG ball like the Idol or the Phase 2 to add in there. But yeah, I like the combination.
If you took the surface off the Journey, you would have plenty, even though it's not as low RG. That ball revs up about as fast as anything out there. So
share screen.
All right. We probably
here we go. Just let me one last check. 57, yeah, 57. Right. $14. Suck it, Packer. I appreciate you though, and I'll enjoy.
Let me get this up here. I want to make sure that people understand the opinions expressed on this show are ours and ours alone. They do not reflect those of the PBA, our sponsors, and many times even each other.
This is a time when my opinion doesn't reflect Chris's, for the simple reason that Chris isn't the one who has to deal with the shipping bullshit to get it there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Aaron, send me an email. beefandbarnzy@gmail.com. Send me an email with what ball you would like. Bearing in mind, if you pick either of the two that are just coming out in a few weeks, you will have to wait 3 weeks. Otherwise, I need weight, address, and which ball you want. So let us know. Congratulations.
Yes, sir. Well, there is one more week left. Of course, there's bowling on Tuesdays and Thursdays again. And so it's hard to say what we'll do. Perhaps I'll run a show here next week. And as I'm taking, I'm going to take a week off before the Masters. So wish the best to Beef and the rest of the company there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The thing is I nearly always say at the start of it, only in the USA, but I forgot. So I would have been forked if that had gone that way. But it didn't. So yay. So thanks again to all those people who bought something on beefandbarnzy.com and for all of the people who did a super chat. We really appreciate you. That is our hoodie. Check that out. Yeah, thanks for watching. We will try and figure out getting some reviews done of the new balls. If Ryan hasn't taken Chris, yeah. If Ryan
taking
hasn't
my balls,
then we might be all right. Yes, Chris is load managing. The people who bought tickets in Delaware are devastated. And well, we will send us off.
All right. Well, until next time, please support the sponsors that support us: Storm, Rotogrip, 900 Global, Cool Wick, Bowlers Mark, Fire Lake Bowling Center, Lightning Strikes, and Platinum Ford. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.
See you later, guys. Thank you.